And until you change the system approach on life, like your identity will always go back to that medium of you're a fat fuck, you're a lazy person, you're the person that doesn't that eats the bad food, that doesn't do the extra work, that doesn't make the money, and all those kind of things. It's because your system approach to your identity is incorrect.
Welcome to the Online Entrepreneur Experience podcast that details the ins and outs, the how-tos, and the ups and downs of living a life of an online business owner.
How's it going today, man?
Oh, just living the dream every day, right? Isn't that's what it's all about? It's just living the dream.
Yeah, that's a pretty cliche statement. A lot of times you ask people and they're like, yeah, someone else's dream. And it's like, yeah, well, then you need to figure out what you're doing and do it differently. But this is going to be another episode of the Online Entrepreneur Experience. My name is Jarrett. This is Mark on the other end. And we got a good one for you today. I think what we're going to be talking about is a lot of like your self-talk and your identity, really, and how that molds your actions and ultimately results.
And I think this is something when people say identity, I think like on an aspect of real social acceptance and everything like that, people have a totally different viewpoint of that. Like my identity is attached to like my job or something I own, and like a materialistic thing almost. And it's so funny that that isn't what it is. And I heard this saying not too long ago, and I thought this saying was like perfect of what somebody's identity is. And I think I said it a couple episodes ago, but I'll say it again. Your identity is not who you think you are. It's not who you think other people think you are. It's who other people think you are. That is your identity. That's how we show up every single day, which is just crazy when you remove yourself from that situation. So you have no actual control other than your actions of what other people see of what your identity actually is.
Absolutely. And you got to be very introspective on that. Like you have to be honest with yourself. And I think that's what most people are missing is they're not being honest with themselves. So like they might think or have, it's interesting. They may have convinced themselves, through self-talk and whatever else you want to call it. They've convinced themselves that they are this person, like, oh, I'm this great person, and behind closed doors, maybe they're not. So that's not who they are. They're not that great person. They're whoever those actions are leading them to be and how they're perceived. And that's why so many businesses fail, right? This is why so many businesses fail. They expand too fast and they're all about putting money in their own pocket. And they're like, oh, but I have this great service. And it's like, yeah, but in reality, the way that you're presenting it, the way that you are marketing it or selling it or using that service, because a business is a service, right? Even if it's not an essential item, it is a service you're providing to a customer. And if you are going about that in a way that you're only looking to benefit yourself, ultimately you're going to fail because people are going to see that.
Oh, 100%, man. I'll just go and dip into your car world for a tiny bit there, right? Many years ago, Ford, they bought Land Rover, Range Rover. And so they bought their name and their prestige and all of their technology advancements in the SUV space and everything like that. And then they drove the brand into the ground because they used like the Ford techniques to put into Land Rover, Range Rover. And it went from like the best off-road vehicle that was also luxury at the exact same time to being a piece of garbage that most people didn't even want to be seen in, because Ford used all Ford's identity into the identity of Land Rover, and Land Rover took over Ford's identity, and thus they ended up having to sell it off because the market went so down on it, and they blew up the brand because the identity really of the brand was Ford. It wasn't Land Rover anymore.
I'll spin off of that. Also in the car industry, it's you pretending to be something you're not, right? You remember when the Chrysler 300s came out? Yeah. Like, what did they copy? What car did they copy? What does Bentley. It look like? It looks exactly like a Bentley, right? But you're getting a Chrysler product. Like, it's not a Bentley. And you see these things now driving around, they're all clapped out. And it's like, well, yeah, because it was trying to look like. Then you go to like Toyota, right? Toyota's like, we're not going to be fancy. We're just going to make something that runs forever. We are about giving you a quality product. And it's all back to marketing. It's very interesting. But the American car companies as a whole, not every single product, but most of them, I truly believe they're like, okay, we're going to make money on repairs and we're going to come out with a flashy new car every 5 years. So you want to get rid of this disposable one, get a new one. Toyota wants you to buy a car. Honda wants you to buy a car and have so much love for it because it's always been there for you. You keep it for 20 years and they know there's no way in hell you're going to buy another brand except for their brand. So it's just two different marketing techniques.
Oh, 100%. And it actually is true. Like, because I used to be in your space and I talked to like business execs in the domestic brands, and their goal is not to sell you a $50,000 vehicle or anything like that. It's to make $150,000 off the repairs. Like, that's the actual goal of whenever any vehicle comes off is to 3x the amount of whatever they sold the vehicle for, 3x that on repairs and maintenance.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all just different marketing techniques, but and that goes back to your identity and what people perceive you as, because if you buy something that you're going to have to spend a bunch of money on, you initially bought it based off of essentially kind of a false essence of a good vehicle, right? And then now all this, the shine wore off and the true identity comes through and you're like, okay, I'm never buying an Equinox ever again. Like, I'm going to buy something that's more reliable. Yeah, I might pay a little bit more upfront, but these people weren't honest with me.
That's exactly it. They lose lifetime customers. And I think that's what so many businesses do wrong and so many people do wrong. It's just like you hear these people that are getting fired from their jobs. Like, I was such a good employee, blah, 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 blah. It's just like, well, you wouldn't have got fired if you were such a good employee, right? And it's like that identity that they're giving themselves is that, and you don't get the loyalty from the other side if you're not loyal yourself, right? Like, if you're like dipping out early, stealing from the company, not doing the minimum standards of what's required and everything like that. It doesn't matter if you bring a box of donuts every single day to work. Like, yeah, you're the donut person, but the donuts will eventually shine off too, right? So yeah, that's what I was talking about before. It's like, you're not who you think you are. You thought you were a good employee. You're not who you think other people think you are. You thought, like, your employer thought you were a good employee, and all of your fellow employees, they thought that you were a good employee. You're a bad employee because that's what other people thought. That's why you got fired. So that's why that kind of formula works so well towards your identity, right?
It's who you prove yourself to be to other people. There's always people that look from an outsider's view looking in that are like, oh, well, it must be nice to be that guy, or that guy sucks. And until you really know, you're not allowed to have it. I mean, you can have an opinion, but you're not allowed to have a legitimate factual basis, about this person and ultimately what their identity is. And my first question about identity, because it's such a huge thing, when you're dealing with any kind of business. You're trying to get customers, because without customers, there's no business to be had, right? So how important is self-talk when you're trying to, live up to an identity that you desire?
I think it is honestly the most important thing. And if anybody that's listening to this podcast has struggled with like self-talk, like, the best self-talk book I've ever read was What to Say When You're Talking to Yourself. That book like legitimately changed my life and how I talk to myself. And it goes into so many details on that. But to actually answer your question, it is so imperative. I think they say you have 70% of your conversations, but with yourself. Like, 70% of the conversations you have every single day is with yourself. So being able to actually hype yourself up instead of negatively talk yourself down from things, because you're always going to resort back to your medium, right? So if your medium forever is to eat bag of chips every single day, and your now medium you want to change is to not eat chips ever anymore in your life, your self-talk is going to be the thing that regulates that, right? So and it's always going to go down to your norm medium until your medium changes to your top, right? So it like, when it's like, oh, there's those bag of chips that are over in my cupboard, it's going to taste delicious. It's going to be that self-talk that's going to prevent you from doing that and going there. So your self-talk is honestly the biggest thing, because you are your own best friend, biggest ally, number one fan, all of those kind of things, business partner, whatever you want to go on with it. Like, you are that person that was going to allow yourself to, or not allow yourself to, do everything.
You have to set realistic expectations for yourself as well. That's where I wanted to go with that. Like, if, like you say, the chips, for example, if you are, I'm sorry, I'm going to get a little, if you're a fat fuck and you eat a bag of chips every single day, you're a fat fuck. You sit on your couch and you and you sit and eat chips all day. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm never eating chips again. Well, that goes back to not being honest with yourself, because everybody knows, like, oh, he's the guy that sits on his couch and eats chips every day. If you want to change that, that's great. But I can tell you right now, the answer isn't just to throw all the chips away in your house and never eat anything bad again and live off of freaking celery sticks and kale, because you're setting yourself up for failure. It's just like working out. If you want to go start working out, that's great. Start with 3 days a week. Go to the gym 3 days a week. It's something that's attainable. Once you're comfortable and now you've set a new medium, now you're the guy that goes to the gym 3 days a week, then you can up it to 4 days and to 5 days and to 6 days. But if you sat on your couch for 20 years of your life and never worked out or had any physical activity whatsoever in your mom's basement, and all of a sudden now you're like, I'm the gym guy, and you're like, I'm going to go to the gym 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Oh, 100%. Like, because it's not about like getting 1,000% better overnight and that instant gratification of like, you're now a whole new you. Like, it's not about that. It's about getting 1% better every single day, right? There's a whole theorem behind it. I forget who it is. It's back in like old days, like Elizabeth the Queen kind of days. And it's so funny that so many people go that way. And we see it all the time in like business, right? Like, people want to just like go in and just think that they're going to go from never making money online to making $10,000, $50,000 a month online. And it just doesn't work like that. It's because the systems that are attached to your identities, that are attached to your self-talk, attached to all those things, haven't been reset. So if you're removing things from your life, you have to be adding new things in correlation to having a trigger effect. And we're going very neuroscience right now, but having a triggering effect to make sure that you do that. So what's going to prompt that action? Okay, I go open the fridge. Every time I go open the fridge, do I think about eating the what's something crappy in a fridge? I don't know.
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake. Every single time, like, you open the fridge, you can see that cheesecake, but now you have to change the identity of what you see cheesecake as. Is like, no, cheesecake means I need to go do 10 push-ups, and that is the new triggering effect that goes towards those things. And until you change the system approach on life, like, your identity will always go back to that medium of, you're a fat fuck, you're a lazy person, you're the person that doesn't that eats the bad food, that doesn't do the extra work, that doesn't make the money, and all those kind of things. It's because your system approach to your identity is incorrect. And until you fix the systems that are attached to those things, you'll always stay at your medium. You'll always go back there. It's easy to change things for a couple of weeks, but in a couple of weeks you'll be right back.
Absolutely. And we can go even deeper into this. I love it. But the whole reason that you have these problems and that all these steps need to be taken to reset is because you essentially have two identities. You have the identity that's legitimate, that other people, you've proven to other people that's who you are. And you have the one that you truly believe you are, right? You have both of them. And one of them is the real deal. One of them is your perception of yourself. And if you don't go about changing that perception of yourself, you're never going to get to where you want to be. And some people, that identity doesn't exist because they're honest with themselves. They hold themselves accountable. They know exactly what they need to do and when they need to do it. But discipline is something that I feel like it's very skewed nowadays, because people think, oh, to be, like, let's say your identity is, you're the Viking marketer, you're Mark the marketing guru, right? But that doesn't mean that you have to sit in front of a computer for 22 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like, you are not defined by what you do to create wealth and prosperity for yourself. Like, there's more to you as a person than that. And I think people think discipline, they think, I got to go all Navy SEAL and just be like the hardest motherfucker in the planet. I got to go full David Goggins.
I was going to say David Goggins. That's awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that's not what being disciplined and being a hard worker means. Like, you have to have a balance in your life. And that leads me to my next question, which is going to be habits. Like, if you have this real identity that everyone knows that you are, and you've proven to the universe that you are this person, and then you have this identity that you think you are, and maybe it's a false perception or it's something that you want to be, so you've decided that is who you are. How do habits play into this? I always think of good habits and bad habits, and those are going to be our stepping stones, little habits. Eat a cheeseburger one day, you're not going to have a heart attack and die. Eat a cheeseburger every day for 30 years, you're probably going to have a heart attack and die. So why does it seem like bad habits are so easy to build and hard to break, and good habits are hard to build and easy to break.
I love that you asked me this question because you were just saying something that was in correlation to this, and I wanted to say it anyway. So that's awesome. I appreciate you asking this question. So like, there's two parts to it. I'll answer the later part first, and then I'll answer the part that I like had in my head after. But why is it so easy? Is because the world and the marketing of this world is built around negative habits. So you get all these prompts constantly in life. You open your phone, you're scrolling on Facebook. It's all this negative stuff. Not like negative stuff, but all this stuff that would be negatively reflecting onto you. Like there's cheeseburgers on there, there's cheesecake on there, there's cheese everything on there. There's all these different things. There's activities to distract you, clips that you can watch that are entertaining, all these different things that are going to take from your missions to your things in life. And all of those prompts are constantly being triggered around you. So there's a lot more negative triggers that are all around everywhere and in society because they're trying to market and sell you stuff. And other people have their agendas that are going to market and sell you their agendas, like your best friend. They want to go out and eat cheesecake because they've just cleansed for 14 days. Well, you haven't cleansed for 14 days. You've been eating cheesecakes for 14 days. You're like, I can't eat more cheesecake, but you're going to do that to go support your friend now. And that's the thing, is because there's this dichotomy out in our world and everything that everyone's going to push onto you. So it's up to you to filter that stuff out as what's actually going to be beneficial and be good habits towards you. And this is where it comes into the point where I actually wanted to say, and it was funny, we've all heard this and probably made fun of it more than we'd like to admit, but there's those bracelets, and what would Jesus do? I'm sure you've seen these bracelets. They've been put out everywhere and everything like that. And it's a funny perspective because there have been so many memes being put out about that and everything like that. But it's one of the most profound, great sayings that you could actually have. But it doesn't need to just stick with Jesus. It sticks with the person that you want to become, the person, the identity, as you were saying, that's in your head. So if you're the person that has lost 30 pounds, and say you're 210 pounds and you want to be 180 pounds, you ask yourself, would the 180 pound version of me do this action, eat this thing, do that? And that's what you have to ask yourself, right? Would that person do this? And if that is the self-talk that you end up having triggered into your head before you do every action, then you'll really be able to create more good habits than bad habits. It's just like if you're the person starting an online business and you're trying to work towards, say, making 5 figures a month in an online business, you have to ask yourself, is this action, is me watching this TV show right now, the version of me that's making $10,000 a month, is that person watching this TV right now? And if it's not, then you should probably stop those things. And that's really going to help you filter out the things that are going to help you get to your destination to the things that are going to help you get away from your destination.
Absolutely. I love it. And you're right. And that kind of, this perfectly ties into the next thing I wanted to ask you, which was, you just talked about like the guy on social media that seems like he has everything and he's in good shape, and then he goes eats cheesecake, and you can't do it because you don't know that he cleansed for 14 days and can have a piece of cheesecake, and you ate cheesecake for a month. So you see the goods and the bads. You see the cheeseburgers, the pizza, the drinks with friends, and then you see all these people that look like models essentially, and you're scrolling and you're like, well, the two things don't go together. Like those two things will never go together, and they can in moderation. But how does like instant gratification and entitlement, which I think we see way too much in our modern society, how do those two things negatively affect your identity? We've said this before. It's so easy to go on Facebook and scroll through and be like, must be nice, I want that, must be nice. And you turn into this just like drone that's disappointed with where you are, because all you're seeing is this stuff that other people have that looks so nice. You don't see any of the behind the scenes. So you're essentially programming your mind for instant gratification that might not be realistic. But if you're self-entitled and you have been programmed to believing you should have this instant gratification, how is that going to affect your identity?
I love that, man, and it is because those are habits on their own. Being entitled. What were the two things? Entitled and
Instant
instant
gratification.
gratification. So like instant gratification and entitlement are habits on their own, and people don't see those things as habits, but they're triggers in the mind. So you see something that you would desire, and instead of being like, "Oh, I want that. How do I go get that?" and being curious about it, they'd be like, "Oh, it must be nice. They're so lucky. They just lucked out. Oh, their mommy and daddy must have gave that to them, or whatever the thought pattern that you have is your own insecurities that go on. Those are habits on your own. So it's just like once again, like you can revert back to the thing I was just saying with the person that had those things. Would they be thinking like that, right? And the likelihood of not is the person that has the Bentley Continental are they saying, oh, it must be nice for that other person to have a Bentley Continental? No, because you don't hear other rich millionaires or billionaires taught and bashing other people for how they spend their money. You don't hear those people doing that. You never hear another millionaire bashing another millionaire or like how they just spent their money. No, you hear people that are making like $50,000, $60,000 trying to critique people that have the millions, how they should be spending their money, instead of just figuring out and being curious of how you can make that money. They start trying to, mansplain how they can to get to those things. So how does that kind of correlate with your identity and everything like that? That is your identity. Your identity is entitlement. Your identity is like instant gratification. So you'll never be able to rise up to those next things until you remove those pieces from your identity. Because just because you identify as something or you have something as part of your identity doesn't mean it's a good thing, right? Like there's a lot of bad things that are part of your identity. And I feel like everyone sees like their identity as everything that is my identity is all good things. Well, they can't all be good things as long as they're correlated also with your mission.
Absolutely. And it's, again, I think social media is bullshit, for your mind. It's the equivalent of sitting on the couch and eating the potato chips instead of something that's actually nutritious for you. And that's because, like let's say you have the Bentley or you got the Lexus or so people, and there's nothing wrong with this, but people are going to be proud of that thing. So they post it, right? They post it because they're proud of it. They've worked hard for it. And they're not going to post the 10, 20-year-old Corollas that they drove, and rust buckets they drove to get the nice shiny car. You just see the shiny car. So you don't see all the behind the scenes. And it's easy to fall into that trap. And that I could go down a whole nother rabbit hole.
Oh man, can I just add to that for a second?
Yeah.
Because it's funny, because they show those things, you automatically think this person's successful, but you trash them and everything like that. But if they actually showed those Corollas and all that kind of stuff, and actually, what's his name? The guy that owns Amazon is eluding me right now. Jeff Bezos. There's this video, and you guys can check this out. Maybe I'll put it in the corner when I edit this. But it's him driving like an '89 Honda Civic, and Amazon is already super successful at this point in time. He's making either 8 or 9 figures at this point in time, and he's being interviewed about it. And they're like, "Why are you still driving around in this Honda Civic?" And he's like, "A Honda Civic's a nice car." But the thing is because it's a nice car. Like the '89 Honda Civic, it was built one of the best built cars ever, right? But people see that and they're like, oh, that's a shitty car. If this guy is actually a millionaire, he should have all these things. And it's just like you almost have to put that stuff out there for people to trust you. And if you don't, and if you actually show those other things that you have, then you wouldn't. Like I have 3 vehicles, and I was telling you about this the other day. One's a Ford Focus. If I just showed people that I drove around in a Ford Focus, what would people think, right? But that car I rent out. It's actually a money-making thing, so I own it so I can make money off of it. I also own a Lexus and I own a Tesla. So it's just but if I only showed the one car and not the other 3 cars, how many people would be like, oh, this guy's scamming people. He didn't make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's, it's even from a business perspective with like my car stuff, like my work pickup, and I have an Audi, I have a Mustang, I have too many cars, but my work pickup is a 20-year-old F-150, and it's a great truck. Like it doesn't cause me any issues. It just keeps going and going. And for a work car in the automotive space, it is a great vehicle because I don't care if I ding it up. It's a work car. And I've had people come up and be like, you got a business. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And they're like, you should go out and buy a brand new pickup because that's the face of your business. And I'm like, is my truck clean? And they're like, oh yeah, it's a really nice old truck. And I'm like, the small guy, the guy that actually understands how things work, are going to be like, oh, this guy must be a decent mechanic because his 20-year-old truck looks nice and is still running. Like I'd much rather have an HVAC guy come to my house in a nice older work vehicle that is maintained than something that's brand new. Because I'm like, oh, I can see that this person is actually who they say they are.
And once again, it comes to the identity. And I mean, this is what we talked about last week. So if you guys want a little bit more on this kind of thing, definitely go check out our last week's episode. But we talked all about like, the avatar and like who we wanted to attract as customers. And that all fits in with our identity. If we look a certain way, we're going to attract a certain people and everything.
Absolutely. And you just got to be honest with yourself. I think that's the biggest takeaway from identity is you have to clearly define what you want to get, and then realize that, the easy road to get there might not be the way to go, because if you fake it till you make it, so to speak, and you're not this real person, well, you've just built up a clientele of people who perceive you and truly believe you are this person when you're not. You're setting yourself up for failure. So I think identity it's definitely malleable. It's something that you can change, but you definitely have to look within yourself and, be honest with yourself. And I think that's the hardest thing to do for most people. But God, I could go down so many rabbit holes with this. I think this has been a great episode.
No, bro, I feel the same way. And I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, man, we could probably talk about this for another hour.
Absolutely.
But no, I think this is great. And I think this is like the stuff that, like, if you got to the end here, like, that's awesome. We appreciate you guys, and just put in the comment section if there's any things that you're trying to work on or you're trying to adjust in your own life. We'd love to hear that. But this is the type of stuff that's actually going to make you successful and actually going to make you like long-term successful, not like just like 2 weeks successful, right? Because anybody can be successful for a couple weeks, but that means nothing in the 80 years, 90 years, 100 years that you're going to be alive. Who fucking cares about 2 weeks like that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, so we will hit you guys up next week, and I got my next topic, Mark. I got one question left on the board, and I just didn't want to go through that rabbit hole and get into like another 3 hours, but I'm going to kind of spin off of this question that I got for you, and next week I think we're going to have a killer one. So I thank you guys for watching this. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the podcasts, right? I hope this is beneficial for you. This is why we do this, right? This isn't to benefit us. This is to benefit you guys and to teach you something, and we can all rise up together, hopefully. So once again, my name is Jarrett. That is Mr. Mark Wilson on the other end, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning into the Online Entrepreneur Experience. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes that we're releasing and any of these amazing pieces of value that we're giving out. And if you could take the time out of your day and leave us a review, we'd be so grateful. We look forward to seeing you on that next episode.